Thank you, Rebecca. Good morning. Good morning, New Hampshire. Good morning, Maine. Good morning, New England. Good morning, beyond and nationally. This is Good Morning, New Hampshire, the pulse of an H. But as I said, well beyond thousands streaming each morning now on any kind of smart device. Hey, Google, hey, Alexa, play the pulse of an H. Desktop, iPhone, Android, you name it. Hope you're having a good start to our Thursday here. J Dog, it's a leap day, I guess. I heard Mike Pomp earlier with Rory O'Neill, NBC News Radio national correspondent, who'll join us later this morning live in the 11 o'clock about how we add a day every 4 years if the year is divisible by four. Anyway, it goes on and on. But here we go. One final day before we bring in March tomorrow. And J Dog, I don't know. Well, I know where you were, but I don't know if your windows were open last night. But I have to tell you, on the coast, there was some gusts well over 50 miles per hour during the night last night. You're not alone. We have people here and up in Maine. I think most of it will be restored. We don't have an ongoing weather situation, but some wind, very strong wind, a lot of branches, fences, you name it. Oh, the other thing, J Dog, I was talking to a buddy this morning. Communities that have garbage pickup and recyclable pickup today or whatever, this morning, Thursday, you put it out at night, it's all over the roads. Oh, I mean, the port, yeah, it's everywhere. All right, dueling visits to the border. Biden, Trump. We're going to jump into that. Sanctuary cities. What's this? They want. Oh my good. The Biden administration now wants sanctuary cities to cooperate with ICE to get criminals out. Oh my goodness, 3 years silence, but some inflationary numbers. We have a lot going on. And before we get going, plus a really, I thought, impactful interview Mike Pomp had earlier on the Morning Information Center just a few moments ago on the Pulse of an Age. Going to replay some of that at 10 o'clock with Dr. Phil about colleges today, the bubble wrapping of young people, and the role parents have to get these kids ready for the real world. Unbelievable stuff. And a really good interview, Mike. Thank you. Also, coming up, we're going to hear from our friends in the New Hampshire State Police, highlight a member of Troop A who's got an interesting background and turn also everything from college football to a bunch of choices and chose to serve and protect in the New Hampshire State Police. And that segment coming up in a little bit live, brought to you by AutoFair. And by the way, state police, we'll come back to this in a moment, looking for your help. Anyone with information yesterday morning, a little after 8 o'clock, about 8 o'clock, 95 South in Portsmouth, that fatal accident car got off there. We'll tell you the exit, rolled over, one dead, one seriously injured. The driver, a woman, 65 years old, losing her life. Yesterday morning, anyone who saw anything, 95, that accident, you'll know if you saw it. If the state police want any help at all, could be, you may think it's not important. You may have driven by, thought the car was just off the road. Anything at all, we're going to tell you how to get that information to the state police. I mentioned the economy and some inflationary numbers out of the gate. Dr. Vic, aka Dr. Vikram Mancharamani, host of Navigating Uncertainty. He's rather certain about that. And of course, his book, The Generalist. Good morning, Dr. Vic. I'm all right. Hey, give us a weather report. You're kind of in the central part, a little more a little northern in one of our great ski areas, New Hampshire School Vacation Week. You're up at Lincoln at Loon Mountain. A little icy overnight after the rain and the winds. All right. What do you see on the economy? Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry, I had it next to my talking points to ask Dr. Vic. This past week, crypto is going up, 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 up. Why? Why? Right. Well, well, it's catching mine because not to get into, personal, like I don't give financial advice, but I want to take a moment on this. After all, J Dog, well, might have to remind me, you, Dr. Vic, the guy who got nailed, went to prison, the young guys at Friedman, for the platform. Yeah. He had all, Tom Brady and Giselle and all these big profile and blew through the money. So a lot of people, that and a couple of other things sort of caused the whole crypto thing to really tamp down and melt down a little bit. So a lot of people either closed, forgot about it. So what I typically did was, because you were worried that certain platforms like Coinbase and others, are they solvent? There were stories if they were losing money, and a lot of people got nervous, right? So what I did was, instead of closing everything out, I left a little bit in, right? Because just something, it's fun to, I don't do DraftKings fantasy football. It's kind of fun hobby when you're just, if you're on a, looking at crypto. So I left a little bit in, forgot about it. And then middle of this week, I looked at it. I'm like, whoa, all of a sudden there's a number there and I'm laughing. So I'm thinking, I look at AI, all the technology that you can't stop. And I'm saying, why would the digital fiat, why would crypto globally go away just because the platforms and a couple characters screwed up? It is a viable thing in terms of how some people are now looking at blockchain technology, AI. So I'm thinking, I'm not advising people jump back into it, but I wouldn't assume that crypto is going by the wayside. I personally, I just think it's might actually be sort of recharging right now. Right. Well, and they're also, yeah, I get it. And they're also saying that, if it's at $62,000 a Bitcoin right now, believe it or not, it can go up to 180, 150, 120,000 per Bitcoin. I'm not saying it will. I'm not saying it will, but the key is, again, what people look at is, okay, don't do this, because it's like when you get a headache and you Google causes of a headache online and you'll get all these things and you won't sleep at night. But if you Google what's the next Bitcoin, all kinds of stuff from Motley Fool to Yahoo to everything pops up. So, all right, Dr. Vic, thank you very much. We appreciate it. And navigating uncertainty, and of course, the book, The Generalist. How's it doing? All right, thank you, Dr. Vic. Speaking of Dr. Vic promoting that book, we have 10 o'clock. Dr. Phil, really, in my opinion, a must listen to interview. Mike Pomp talking to Dr. Phil live a little while ago on our network, The Pulse of an Age. Just what he says about young people in colleges today. You've heard me talk a lot about it, but I really think he has obviously a Dr. Phil way of getting right to it, even if it makes some waves. And I think you're going to want to hear it. So that's coming up at 10:30. We also coming up. We're going to have our friends from the New Hampshire State Police, brought to you by Auto Fair. Good story from a member of Troop A. Hey Google, hey Alexa, play The Pulse of an Age. Back in a few. All right, a very busy John Decker, our own White House correspondent, going to be traveling on Air Force One with President Biden to the border, Texas, I believe Brownsville, to assess the situation. Also, Republican former president, leading likely nominee Donald Trump, also going to Texas, talking about the border. It's dueling trips to the border. John Decker, almost a preview to the general election with a major issue, if you ask me. Good morning, John. And John, I know you're busy with the trip, and I just want to, but you're seeing signs from this White House, whether it's something they want to see or not, that they know this is a bigger hot button issue in terms of voters, including Democrats, the border. And I even saw a story which looks a little knee jerk. White House now calling for sanctuary cities to now cooperate with ICE in, what's happening in Georgia over illegal immigrant crimes committed here. John Decker, safe trip, our own White House correspondent. Thank you, John. I'll check in on that, J Doc. Thank you. I always get a little bit humbled and uh, mind boggling that I can say that we have a show. I have a show. I host a show that we have our own White House correspondent. John Decker does a great job, and I love it. And the show's grown, and we're getting national penetration on the streaming side of things. Particularly the first hour or two of the show, all across our metro, Manchester, Boston, Lakes region, up into Maine, but nationally in major markets. Thousands of listeners each morning. Of course, our network of news talk stations, we have you blanketed here at home like a blanket. Lakes region, WEMJ, AM and FM, and that's 107.3 on the dial FM and 1490 AM. WASR, AM and FM, WTSN right up into Portland, Maine, York County, Kennebunk, you name it, 1270 AM, 98.1 FM, 98.1 FM. And of course, 107.7 FM, the Pulse conquered Manchester. So pretty good stuff. I believe, do we have our guest, J-Dog? Okay, great. We have a great guest now. So I appreciate him checking in. And it's with our friends from the New Hampshire State Police and Auto Fair. By the way, got a pretty cool announcement coming up Tuesday in terms of recruitment for the state police and how you can learn more and get more involved and be in shape to pass the physical. But right now, I want to bring in from Troop A, and I appreciate it, is Trooper Chris Houston of Troop A, which is, I believe, over in on the Epping area on the Seacoast side, very busy part of the state. And of course, they had a fatal accident yesterday morning. And if anyone has any information on that, maybe he can refresh us on how to get that. But a great story on how he came to the division of the state police, his background, and sources tell me he even played some college football and does a lot to help in the community. Good morning, Trooper. Thanks for being with us. Well, thank you for what you're doing. How long have you been with the state police? Has that gone pretty quickly? I got news for you, sir. It doesn't get any slower. Hey, tell me a little bit about your background, how you came to the division, and of course, our great state police segment brought to you by Auto Fair. Chris Houston, tell us a little bit about your story, who you are, where you came from, why you wanted to be a trooper. Oh, cool. Mhm. Well, it sounds pretty cool. But I get a text from someone who knows UNH football. Were you a cornerback? Yep. So our listener, that's the same guy. He said he was pretty darn good. How come you're not? How come I'm interviewing you on an NFL team right now? No, I think it's yeah. Well, you did well because I'll tell you, anyone who plays any college sport, it's not a easy accomplishment. Hey, I want to go back though. And by the way, Harrisburg, I had a great time in Carlisle at the U.S. Army War College when I attended a seminar there, and I love the nearby, Gettysburg and all that stuff. So I know the area somewhat. Um, Talk a little bit. By the way, before I forget, I don't want to forget because it was a loss of life and a bad accident, and you're from that troop. If people have, I heard a story this morning on that fatal accident yesterday morning. I'm not saying you were involved in the investigation, trooper, but if I think the people, your state police are looking for anyone, eyes and ears that may have seen something on that car that went off and the driver injured and the passenger, I believe, killed. What's the best way? Are you looking for any help on from any witnesses of the motoring public? Thank you. So let's just get back to a little bit about what do you if someone said and you mentioned your dad recommended it in Pennsylvania as well, but you're here, Trooper Houston. What do you like about the job when you come in, when you go to it and you approach it and your peers and how you're received in the public? Do you feel the public supporting our public service folks out there locally and regionally? Just tell us a little bit about the job, what you like about it, the challenges, the rewards. Is hmm hmm I love it. Well, you're a great spokesperson for the division. By the way, I just saw nationally the uniforms got a good rating nationally. So there you go, state police uniforms. And before we let you go, what's your message to anyone else thinking of looking into public safety, looking into the division or local police, law enforcement, state police? I know you're biased for the New Hampshire, for the state police, but what's your message on anyone, Trooper Houston, who might be interested in joining the ranks or looking into it? Well, I love your passion and energy, and I think it's a great story. And I appreciate you're on the job and keeping us safe out there and doing a great job and a great story, a great passion for the challenge. I can hear it when you not only talk about when you join, but if you enjoy it and what you like about it. And I hear that from a lot of your colleagues that it's a people who've been in the business side or doing other things. It's a sense of really serving and a team and helping the public. So thank you, sir, for what you do. All right. I didn't ask you any questions about your favorite team, by the way, in the NFL. I didn't want to go there. We're in the off season, so I don't want to speculate. Probably. Wait a minute. Hold on. Give me a break. Probably the Steelers. Am I right? Oh, okay. Okay. It's great. Yeah. Yeah. It's great stuff. Thank you for what you do. Be safe. All right. Brought to you by our friends Jason LaCroix and the team at Auto Fair. Check out their locations. Go in, get some new tires, get a deal, bring in a used vehicle. They have a lot of inventory right now. Auto Fair, convenient locations, many in Manchester, over by the mall, many brands. I saw one of the new Hyundai recently, the Hondas, the Fords, of course, the Nissan and Stratum off exit 11. Go in and see Adam and the team. Hey, Google, hey, Alexa, play the Pulse of an Age. We'll come back and talk about the dueling visits. Even CNN is using my term. They didn't give me credit when I called it dueling visits to the border the other day. Biden and Trump both on the southern border. Coincidence or not? Back on Good Morning Hampshire, the Pulse of an Age in a moment. All right, welcome back. And I wanted to go back to we have a packed show for you this morning. Hey Google, hey Alexa, play the Pulse of an H. But by the way, good morning. I still get these messages from Europe, people listening. Of course, it's later there, but including Tim up in Finland, northern Finland, listening. They're mind-boggling to me. North of Helsinki, people in London, England, checking in. I don't know if they're expats or ex-New England Pats or New England Patriots Pats. I don't know. But good morning, I guess. Wow. As we get going this morning, J Dog on the boards, windy morning. Most of that power situation should be restored in a lot of the areas. I think they were up to between in our region, Maine and New Hampshire, more than 20,000 outages overnight with a strong wind gust. Should be restored fairly quickly today because they're not dealing with ongoing storm or snow, just some wind sticking around to this afternoon. But the wind gust, wow, last night about middle of the about midnight, 1 in the morning, they woke you up. I mean, they make you feel like the house was shaking. Hey, coming up in a little bit in the 10 o'clock, Dr. Phil, great interview you're going to want to catch on colleges, parents, and young kids today, social media. I mean, all the stuff we know, but why we need to really do something about it. All the stuff we know, as Dr. Phil said, he wants you to buy his book. Anyone who has written a book like yours truly appreciate you buying the book, but we gotta do something. Because, as he says, we're creating a generation of folks, young people that are having a hard time deal with the real world, like the real market-driven world, and mom and dad and the government not taking care of everything. It's like a tough world out there. Now, what are we doing about it? All right, coping skills. So that's coming up. White House calling for sanctuary cities to cooperate with ICE, Immigration Customs Enforcement, over the furor of illegal immigrant crimes. Illegal migrant crimes, like in Georgia, that incredible, terrible, and the word tragic is overused or can be misused, but I don't know of another word other than tragic loss and murder of that young nursing student and the guy from Venezuela who broke into the country through El Paso, Texas, and has a criminal background. You know, I was like reading this going, okay, so the current White House is calling for sanctuary cities and jurisdictions across the U.S. to start cooperating. What the hell have they been doing the last 3 years? What the hell have they been doing the last 3 years? You know, if you listen to the show, and thank you for that, long before what happened last Thursday and Friday, that young, and as sad as it is, this murder of this nursing student may be a tipping point in Georgia. I don't know if you've heard the audio from that meeting with the mayor. I don't know if it was Athens, but the part of Georgia where this happened. He was booed and yelled out of the meeting when he's trying to downplay the connection and the whole sanctuary city and illegal immigrant. I mean, he was literally booed out of the building, I guess. The public is pissed off, and they should be. But I've been talking about ICE and this issue long before last week, the last few weeks, going back a month. If you recall, I cited from 2023. I came across the ICE statistics from their ERO program where they have to go in and sometimes battle these courts and battle these cities to get rapists, murderers, gang members, or even affiliated terrorists who are here illegally to not be protected by our own justice system and these judges who are political activists, in my opinion, intellectual morons who are letting these convicted criminals who've hurt innocent Americans, including police officers in Times Square a few weeks back in New York City, Saturday night at around 8:30. 4 or 7 of these punks and thugs jumped and mugged 2 officers in uniform in Times Square just doing their job. And they laugh because they know the courts, if the police catch them, the courts, some judge, some nut job judge. Let me say it again because it actually feels good, and I don't like being that way. Nut job judge releases the criminal with a history of violence without bail because they don't believe in the ICE enforcement and this whole sanctuary thing that these poor rapists and people that are hurting Americans are here seeking asylum. Who cares if they were arrested 22 times in Venezuela? Who cares if they were arrested 12 times in Brazil for murder? They're here. Hakuna Matata. No worries. So now today, Biden and Trump are going to the border, 2 different locations, the southern border where 99% of this stuff is happening, acting like all of a sudden it matters. And now the White House, after 3+ years, telling these sanctuary cities, start cooperating with our. Do you realize Folks, I don't know why regionally. I really don't know why. I think Michael Graham, New Hampshire Journal, is one of the few outlets that even talked about this, and I talked about it quite a bit here. But in Boston and Massachusetts media, I don't know, maybe Howie Carr did, but I haven't caught his show lately. No offense, Howie. Hope you're doing well in the afternoons. But this Dorchester, Massachusetts, Boston Dorchester District Court, a judge. Where is this in New England headlines? Last year, an illegal migrant from Haiti raped a developmentally disabled woman in Boston. Raped a developmentally disabled woman in Boston. Let me repeat that because you need to hear it. Physically, forcefully raped and assaulted a developmentally disabled woman from Boston. Now, he was caught. The police got him. And ICE knew about him because he had a record and history of this, so I'm not even calling it alleged. Convicted rapist, right? So they catch him, and he goes to be arraigned in court, and a Dorchester, Massachusetts district judge, again, nut job judge. I'm sorry, if you were on my show, I'd sit here and respect and call you a nut. Tell me why you're not if you let a convicted criminal rapist go without bail. Why would you do that? Do you have kids? Do you have daughters? Do you have nieces? Do you have neighbors? Do you have kids? Why would you let this dangerous, violent offender back out on the streets because you don't agree with ICE's policy of deportation? What are you, nuts? What are you, certifiably insane? Seriously. That's what's been happening. Oh, but let me spell it out a little more for you. Because whenever I post this stuff, there's inevitably few people who like to follow the page for the show. And I appreciate most all points of view. But some of these people are just, I don't know what kind of human rabies they have or what mushrooms they ingested. But they'll say, oh, Jack, this is terrible. And I'm not defending it, but the numbers of these crimes are not that big. You're over. Okay, tell that to the parents. You tell that to the parents of that nursing student in Georgia, Dean's List. And their daughter's skull was so disfigured from the physical assault, sexual battery, assault, kidnapping, murder. You tell them that these numbers don't matter. Go ahead, smarty. You tell them. Don't worry about these people who came here illegally if they're hurting Americans. But why are they doing it? Because they can, and this is the kicker. This is what you need to know. In Boston, New York City, those punks that mugged the two officers, the Manhattan DA's office got so much heat. 2 weeks later, they decided, and they were let go by a judge in New York City. They were let go, no bail. And they bragged they were going to go out to California to sanctuary cities because you can't touch them. They can break into Nordstrom's, your home, beat up anyone, rape, assault, and they're not going to get, if they get arrested, maybe they get a free meal and they're going to be let go because some activist judge is not going to even set bail. That's what's been happening. Now, the New York City case, facts are, they caught 4 or 6 or 7 of these people that jumped the two officers in New York City in Times Square at a Greyhound bus station in Phoenix, Arizona, because they were let go after they were arrested. This BS has been happening for the last 3+ years, and people like Representative Ocasio-Cortez or the so-called squad, the regressive squad, runs around and says to constituents, we care more about illegal migrants than Americans. And they don't talk about this. And I shared with you a month ago the number that the ICE ERO had to round up in 2023, 20% increase over the year before, and deport, and how many thousands of them had at least 4 criminal convictions, either in this country or the country they left. And they're running around here laughing their heads off, not worried about spending a night in jail. And now today, the last day of February, the Biden White House is acknowledging that these sanctuary cities need to cooperate with ICE. Today? What are you, insulting my intelligence? What have you been doing for 3 years with these cities? And then, the hypocrisy and what makes me really not too happy about the national media. They won't even point out, they make states like Florida and Texas look like a bunch of Neanderthals, a bunch of idiots, a bunch of jerks. And when you interview the criminals, they'll say, well, we don't hang around in Florida because we get arrested there as an illegal migrant. We're going to be held and go to jail and deported. So we go to California. We go to New York City. And now we go to Boston. How does that make you feel? Texas passes a law that the Biden administration, Department of Justice, is suing or saying it goes too far. Where if you're in Texas and you're here illegally, let me say that again, illegally, and you commit a crime, you're going to go to jail or be deported. So Joe Biden and the White House, they go to Texas today, 3 years after ignoring crimes being committed in sanctuary cities. These criminals basically giving the public and everyone the finger when they're caught because they know the judges are going to let them out. And we've been watching this happen, and God help these families that have been victimized. But every time you bring it up, oh, that's just an aberration. That doesn't happen often. Guess what? The party's over. The party is over. Now the Biden White House is nervous about reelection. They're running to the border today, telling these sanctuary cities to get tougher because they're looking at the poll numbers. Isn't that pathetic? They're looking at the poll numbers. And Trump's been talking about this. Guess what? Buckle up. Preview to the general election. Hey, Google, hey, Alexa, play the Pulse of an H. Jack, Heath, J-Dog on the boards. Back in a few. All right, Bruins in action tonight, J Dog. The Golden Knights. Yep. All right. Does it feel it? Been a pretty quick month, right? More than January, right? What was that? Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. You got canceled, right? Weather. Yeah, yeah. All right. Hey, you know what? Coming up, Brad Card's going to weigh in on the trips to the border as well as this looming government shutdown. Buckle up. Here we go again. What a way to do business. The federal Congress. Wow. But also on the 10 o'clock, Aaron Riel, NBC News Radio national correspondent. A little bit later on in the next hour. Definitely tune in. We appreciate it. Dr. Phil goes one-on-one for 10 minutes. Great interview. Mike Pomp had earlier with him on the Pulse of an H and Mike show. But Dr. Phil, and as only he can, obviously he's a household name for a reason and his book, but that's not really, as he says, it's not just about his book. It's about what's going on with young people in colleges. Wow. I've been talking about this for a couple of years. I'll never forget because it was just a great day of pride when at the Wentworth by the Sea Pavilion, beautiful country club in Rye, we hosted a Navy SEAL luncheon, and Dan Crenshaw, the Navy SEAL from Texas, member of Congress, was sort of the keynote speaker. Phil Taub, Swim of the Mission. It was a great event to raise money for the Navy SEALs and veterans, and it was just Dan Crenshaw. It's already been a number of years. This is a number of summers ago, but what a talk he gave on colleges. He's written a part of his book about this, and he was talking about this for years. He says it actually started, not to bring up politics, but in the Obama administration years. He said it started around, in his estimation, about 10 or 11, 12 years ago in America on college campuses. This woke stuff, anti-American sentiment, but more than that, this like bubble wrapping of young people by their parents and professors so they can't cope with real life. And it's a harsh thing to say because parents are as responsible here as educators, but it's a harsh thing to say, but Dr. Phil says it, and maybe ruffling some feathers. You're going to want to catch this interview. We need to talk about it because so many young people, they can't even cope getting a C minus on an exam in high school or college. They have so much anxiety and depression, which is real. I'm not downplaying that. They can't cope with things not going their way. And what do they do? As Dr. Phil said, like a lot of us, when we get stressed out or bored, you go back online, back on the phone, you start clicking for an escape. And it can lead you to bad places, really bad. But how do we change that? And why should we? Because we don't need a book to be told that just about all of us spend too much time, that we're addicted to this handheld technology and social media. We're addicted. Whether or not we admit it, we are. Just go out to a restaurant tonight at 5:30 and look at the number of couples that are around the room and families. Instead of talking about their day, talking about their work, talking about the weather, they're staring at this thing in your hand that we all can't live without. But some days I fantasize trying to think about living without it because it is such a pain in the neck. It's a good tool. It can help you do remote work. You can be sitting in an airport terminal and do a business call. I get it. A Zoom call, Teams meeting, name it, you name it. But the social media and young people, we're creating a generation, as Dr. Phil says, of kids that just can't cope outside the nest. And all of a sudden they become 30 years old and they can't cope. When are they going to start being able to cope if they don't have the working and survival skills that many of us had when we left the nest at 18 and never went back and went through our bumps and bruises and our apartments and somehow struggled to get by? Coming up, Dr. Phil. Good morning, New Hampshire, the Pulse of an H. Hey, Google, hey, Alexa, play the Pulse of an H. Jack, Heath, the illustrious one. J-Dog on the boards. Back in a moment.